Alrighty, it is now 10:30, so we are going to get started. Thank you all for joining this webinar and signing up. We're very excited to present to you all Creating a Healthier Vermont, Advancing Health Equity in Vermont through Placemaking, Funding, and Support. This is a time for us to present to you all of the statewide opportunities for funding around equity and technical assistance, and also to provide an overview about the newest technical assistance pilot in collaboration with the Vermont Department of Health and the Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. Today is February 14th, 10:30 a.m. If you are not in the right place, please feel free to step away, or please stick around and learn about some of these great opportunities. We'll jump into the agenda, but first we're going to play a podcast teaser. Part of this program is that we are sorry about that. We are including a podcast as a part of this technical assistance pilot, and I'm going to share a little teaser for that in just 1 second. Alrighty. Here we go. All right.
Hello, welcome to Small Towns, Healthy Places. I'm Suzanne Kelly. I manage the Vermont Department of Health's Healthy Community Design Program.
And I'm Richard Amore, and I work for the Department of Housing and Community Development.
This podcast will explore our progress on helping small towns develop community-driven projects that advance equity and inclusion.
We will meet with local leaders in small towns, state officials in Montpelier, and regional partners across the state. We will hear how they are building healthy and inclusive places through robust community engagement, placemaking, accessibility improvements, increasing food access, expanding green spaces, outdoor recreation opportunities, and much more.
We are excited to explore these themes and more with you on upcoming episodes of Small Towns, Healthy Places. You can follow the podcast wherever you listen and learn more at our website at healthycommunitiesvt.com. Thanks for listening.
Awesome. And so we have one of the stars of the podcast who is going to move into our agenda today, as well as our introductions, Suzanne Kelly.
Yes, hello everybody. I just wanted to welcome you all. I'm a little bit of the host today, walking us through the next 2 hours that we'll be sharing together. I work at the Vermont Department of Health. As I said in that podcast, I oversee our Healthy Community Design Program, and I'm just really excited about this particular program that has been the result of some funding from the CDC and some really great partnerships. One of those partnerships is with the Department of Housing and Community Development, Richard Amore, who you will hear from more of a little bit later today. But the purpose of this today is really to introduce this technical assistance pilot, talk a little bit more about why we are centering equity in our healthy community design work around the state, and also introduce folks to a lot of the different resources that are being offered in our towns and communities to really elevate equity and community design, and hoping to make sure that people are partnering and know what some of those resources are. So today we're going to kick this off with Charles Brown from Equitable Cities, who is going to do some level setting for us and really set the stage for this work. Richard is going to share a bunch of great examples of work that's already happened around the state of Vermont. We're going to have a short break, and then we're going to do some panelist presentations where we are sharing some of those other resources that are available. And then we'll wrap it up. So with that, I'm just going to hand it over to Charles so that we can stay on time here.
Thank you, Suzanne. Let's now move to my portion of the presentation. So I'll start sharing here. in 1 second. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Charles T. Brown. We are the lead on this project, and we're happy to join you this morning. For my portion of the presentation, I will be discussing health equity in the built environment. And so in this presentation, in terms of the overview, I'll start with a little background and context. I'll discuss what is equity. We'll cover negative and false perceptions of equity. Move to what is health equity in the built environment. I'll then conclude with discussions around the differences between equity and health equity. I'll talk about ways in which we can incorporate health equity in the built environment, and then show you a brief case study on improving health equity in a low-income Vermont community. And then lastly, the importance of focusing upstream. So starting with the background. In terms of the background, the Vermont Department of Health has been awarded a grant from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to address COVID-19 health disparities among populations that are at high risk and underserved. And this includes the racial and ethnic minority populations and rural communities. These groups include, but are not limited to, people of color, indigenous people, refugees, and English language learners, members of the LGBTQ+ community, people experiencing homelessness, and Vermonters who are justice involved, people living with disabilities, and again, people living in rural communities. Throughout this presentation, you'll hear me refer to them as priority populations. So the funding from this particular grant deployed strategies to support communities to build, leverage, and expand infrastructure support for COVID-19 prevention and control among these populations that are at higher risk and underserved. It was also given to mobilize partners such as yourselves and collaborators to advance health equity and address social determinants of health as they relate to COVID-19 health disparities among populations at risk and that are underserved. Lastly, it was about providing support and additional capacity and resources to historically marginalized communities or priority populations. And it was done to engage them in a collaborative process to co-develop, co-design, and implement local placemaking projects that are not only inclusive, but are also equitable and healthy for all in Vermont. In terms of the current context, VDH partnered with the Department of Housing and Community Development to implement this pilot. And what this pilot will do is provide extra capacity and resources to communities to develop healthy community design and placemaking plans, ideas, and projects that center on equity. It will also be made available to all eligible communities to help advance healthy community design and healthy health equity projects. Lastly, it will prepare communities to apply for the Better Places placemaking grants. So the big question, and one of the reasons for level setting here, is first, what is equity? So equity in the context of Vermont, as well as in general, refers to the fair and just distribution of resources, opportunities, and outcomes among all individuals and communities in the state. And I want to reemphasize the importance here of all individuals and communities in the state when it comes to equity. And this is regardless of their ethnicity, their gender, their sexual orientation, their income, or other factors that create disparities or inequities. And the goal ultimately of equity is to address systemic barriers and structural inequities to create a more inclusive and equitable society in Vermont. You might ask then, what could possibly be the negative and false perceptions of equity in general? Well, the negative perceptions of or connotations of equity can arise from misunderstandings about what equity means, as well as from political, social, and economic biases. So some of these perceptions include, for instance, confusion with equality. Some people may view equity as being the same as equality, when in reality, equity recognizes that different people have different needs and addresses these needs in a fair and just way. Secondly, there's perceived reverse discrimination. Some people may view equity as reverse discrimination, where certain groups receive special treatment rather than recognizing that equity is about correcting systemic inequities and ensuring fair treatment for all people. Thirdly, there's a resistance to change. Some people may resist equity initiatives because they believe that they will lose their privileged status or that the changes will harm their community or business. I'm here to tell you that couldn't be further from the truth, as you're hearing consistently throughout this presentation that the goal is all. Then there's political polarization. Equity can be a politically charged issue, as we all are aware, because of the different political ideologies having different views on what constitute equitable treatment and what policies are actually needed to achieve it. Another reason is economic and class-based biases. Some people may view equity as a redistributive policy that unfairly takes resources from the wealthy and give them to the poor, rather than recognizing that equity is about ensuring fair and equal opportunities and outcomes for all. Then we have racial and ethnic biases. Some people may view equity initiatives as affirmative action programs that unfairly benefit certain racial or ethnic groups, rather than recognizing that equity is about addressing systemic inequalities and ensuring what? Fair treatment for all. So overall, what you have in terms of these negative connotations and perception of equity, these can create resistance and opposition to efforts to promote health equity. So these negative perceptions end up equaling resistance to health equity for all, which brings up, what is health equity? Health equity refers to the concept of ensuring equal access to healthcare and health resources, regardless of someone's socioeconomic status, their race, their ethnicity, their gender, or other factors. Its aim is to eliminate health disparities and ensure that everyone has the opportunity to achieve optimal health outcomes. We've now taken you through what is equity, what is health equity. Then the question remains, okay, what is health equity in the built environment? So health equity in the built environment refers to the design and the construction and maintenance of physical spaces that promote health and wellness for all members of a community. And once again, that is regardless of their race, their ethnicity, their socioeconomic status, or other factors. It recognizes that the design of these built environments can have and may have a significant impact on people's health, particularly for marginalized or underserved communities, or in this particular case, priority communities. So the question becomes then, what are the differences between health equity and equity? So when you look at the two, equity in the built environment refers to the fair and just distribution of resources, opportunities, and outcomes among all individuals and communities. And that is regardless of their background or circumstances. That is the sort of generalized definition of equity. On the other hand, health equity in the built environment focuses on the fair and just distribution of these resources, opportunities, and outcomes as well, but in particular with regards to health. See, it ensures that all individuals have equitable access to the resources and opportunities that support good health, which is why we're here today. So you may ask, now that I have an understanding of what equity is, what health equity is, and even what health equity in the built environment is, how can I or how can we incorporate health equity in the built environment? Well, there are a number of ways that we can do it. One of the first ways in which this can happen is through green spaces. That is, providing access to green spaces such as parks and community gardens. This can help promote physical activity and provide opportunities for social interaction and stress reduction. I mean, who wouldn't be a fan of stress reduction? or social interaction. The next thing we can do is provide safe and accessible sidewalks. Building sidewalks that are well lit, smooth, and accessible to people with disabilities and all people can encourage physical activity and reduce the risk of injury. So it's important to maintain these connections throughout the year, and that's regardless of weather conditions. Doing so benefits not just people with disabilities, but everyone, including children and senior adults in your community. The third thing we can do is provide safe and accessible transportation, because providing access to public transportation, bike lanes, and pedestrian walkways can help reduce the burden of transportation costs and make it easier for people to access essential services such as healthcare and healthy food options. Another thing we can do is provide access to healthy foods, as providing access to fresh, healthy food options such as supermarkets and farmers markets can help improve diets and ultimately reduce the risk of diet-related health problems such as obesity and diabetes. Next, we can provide access to or encourage access to affordable housing. Building affordable housing near public transportation, the green spaces, and these other essential services can help reduce poverty-related health disparities and improve health outcomes for low-income communities. And when we're improving health outcomes for our most vulnerable populations, we're in essence improving health outcomes for everyone. But in order to do this, a critical piece also that is necessary is community involvement. And so when we are engaging with the community in the planning and the design processes, this can help ensure that the built environment meets the needs and preferences of all residents. Again, emphasizing all in the promotion of health equity. Don't forget, as we move throughout this presentation and others, to prioritize the needs and concerns of priority populations. Now let's look at a case scenario where we were to bring all this together. And what I introduce you to here is a case study involving health equity in a low-income neighborhood in Vermont. The background on this particular community is that the neighborhood has a poverty rate of 50% and a high prevalence of chronic diseases such as diabetes and heart disease. The residents in this community also face barriers to accessing healthcare services, including a lack of transportation, language barriers, and limited availability of culturally and linguistically appropriate services. What can we do to address the issues faced by this community? Well, first, some of our efforts to improve health equity might include a community health assessment. And a community health assessment is where a community-based organization will identify the health needs and concerns of those residents. The assessment will probably find, as in this particular case, that access to health services are major issues, is a major issue. As someone who grew up in a rural environment, a town of 500 people, this particular case study is almost identical to my upbringing. And I say so because in that environment, just like in this one, we also had very limited access to healthy food options and safe places to be physically active. Another way to improve efforts here around health equity in this particular community would be through collaboration with healthcare providers. The community-based organization in this context formed partnerships with local healthcare providers to increase access to care for residents. And the healthcare providers agreed to provide services on a sliding fee scale due to the low incomes to offer language and language and cultural interpretation services. Why is this important? Because from a health equity standpoint and an equity standpoint more generally, not everyone speaks English. English isn't their first language. So it's important that we offer things from that language and that cultural interpretation standpoint. Next, we have health equity, health education and outreach. The community saw it important to launch a health education and outreach program to educate residents about the importance of preventive health measures and to provide information about available health services. And the program was offered in multiple languages and was designed to be culturally and linguistically appropriate. Next, what they did was provide health promoting environmental changes, which is what we're aiming to do as part of this pilot. And what the community did was work with the town to make changes to the physical environment that would promote health. For example, they advocated for the construction of sidewalks, bike lanes, and parks in the neighborhood, and for the creation of community gardens where residents can grow their own food. And then lastly, because policy is so important, there was advocacy around policy. The community-based organization worked with local and state elected officials to advocate for policies that would improve health equity in the neighborhood. And more specifically, they advocated for two things. First, they advocated for increased funding for healthcare services, for policies that would make healthy food options more accessible and affordable. Next, they advocated for the implementation of environmental policies that would promote physical activity and reduce air pollution. Given the fact that they prioritize health equity in this community, what do you think the outcomes were? Well, the outcomes were, first and foremost, they saw significant improvements in health outcomes and access to health care services. Next, they saw a decrease in the poverty rate and the prevalence of chronic diseases. Thirdly, they saw improved physical and a social environment. We all need an improved physical and social environment when you're considerate of the current climate, socially, politically, and environmentally. Next, they saw a reduction in social isolation. Many of our seniors, many of our rural residents are living in places where they're socially isolated, but due to the services that were provided here, they ultimately saw a reduction in social isolation. Then what they saw was a greater sense of community and improved overall health and well-being, not just for this population, but for everyone. What this shows and what this provides is that we must, through our policies, our programs, and through this pilot, as we aim to do, we must focus upstream to address the root cause. And how is this or how is that possible? Well, by focusing on the root cause, what you do is you get away from just focusing downstream, which is a focus on risk behaviors and how they might lead to disease and injury and ultimately to mortality. The focus downstream is a focus on the individual actions, blaming residents and others for their situations without recognizing the fact that there are living conditions that help to promote and encourage bad risk behavior. The truth of the matter is when we move upstream, we acknowledge and we cannot ignore the reality that social inequities and their bi-directional relationship with the institutional inequities that create the living conditions ultimately influence the risk behaviors which lead to disease and injury and mortality. And so our goal here is to be considerate through the lens of health equity of these social and institutional inequities that have created these living conditions that are causing people throughout Vermont to not live their healthiest of lives, and we're trying to change that. And the best way to change that is health equity in the built environment. I want to thank you for your time. Now I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Richard, to touch on the Better Places program. Thank you. Richard.
Great. Thanks, Charles. Give me a second while I share screen. Is everybody seeing the slide deck?
I'm not, Richard.
Not yet. Take your time though.
There we go. Switching. Good.
Are we good?
Yes.
Great. Bear with me 1 minute. Good deal. Let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone. Charles, thanks for an inspiring and great presentation to kick things off. I'm Richard Amore, and I work with a great team at the Department of Housing and Community Development and a small division of community planning and revitalization. Our team provides community resources, training, and tools to plan and build thriving, inclusive, walkable places. I'm a professional planner and landscape architect and serve as a planning and outreach manager in charge for our team to lead the state's placemaking efforts through the Better Places program. Today, I'm going to share an overview of some the Better Places partnership, share some local project examples that further health equity, and wrap up with a discussion on the program and the crowd granting kind of community engagement process. So the Better Places program provides an all hands on deck approach to grant making. We provide lots of project support, project coaching, technical assistance, and funding and resources to make your projects happen. It's a public-private philanthropic partnership with DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, leading the program with additional support and resources from the Vermont Department of Health, and Patronicity, who is leading the project coaching and crowdfunding element of the program, and then the Vermont Community Foundation awarding the grants and working with awardees to measure impact and data collection. Better Places is a place-based, people-focused economic and community development program that helps create inclusive and vibrant public spaces in the hearts of Vermont's communities. And it's a new type of grant program that's really about building community and fostering deep collaborations and connections. It's not just one organization or one person or the municipality implementing a project. It's about all of us working together to build better places in Vermont communities, from local project creation to state grant making. It's about collaborating more, lifting each other up, and leveraging the amazing and creative assets in our communities to empower all of us to build better places together. Now I'd like to share a few examples that are advancing local health equity initiatives, building community connections, and creating places for Vermonters to gather and enjoy one another. So local leaders in Brattleboro utilized a Better Places grant to build community and transform an eyesore in their community. Epsil Inspires, a local nonprofit, first received a Vermont Natural Resource Council small grant for smart growth to engage the community, choose a preferred design, and work with the artists on a mural creation. The mural is located on High Street, which is the gateway into downtown Brattleboro. And there was this long, old, and dilapidated retaining wall. And over the years, it's been repeatedly defaced by graffiti and disrepair. And by reclaiming this space with a community mural, engaging the community in its design, its funding, and its creation, the community created this beautiful and welcoming atmosphere for residents and visitors in the downtown. And the Brattleboro Better Places team was very creative and did some clever and inclusive outreach to engage the community in this creation, from hosting local fundraisers and events to bingo night at a local brewery, to meeting the artists and working with local artists who teamed up with recently arrived refugees who were a part of the Art Lords, an internationally renowned Afghan artist collection, to create and paint this mural on High Street. And the mural is beautiful. If you're ever in Brattleboro, take a stroll down High Street, enjoy this beautiful public art project brought to life through Better Places. What an amazing effort, led by the community, for the community, and truly making Brattleboro a better place for all. Amazingly, the project had 94 donors, raising over $8,000, with donors from 36 towns, 12 states, and 3 different countries. And as local project leader Jamie shared, everyone who donated really feels like they are part of the project and are incredibly emotionally connected to it and invested in it. What an incredible and remarkable effort, led by, funded by, and supported by the Brattleboro community. And just up the Connecticut River, one of our pilot projects was in Springfield, Vermont, where an old dilapidated building once lied crumbling into the pieces into the Black River, reflecting the town's industrial past. The town created this fantastic riverfront park near the waterfalls that allows ADA access to the riverfront, added amenities right next to a new affordable housing development right in the heart of downtown. And the town used the Better Places grant to bring Vermonters together from Springfield to connect and enjoy cultural performances and a local band in the heart of downtown, bringing folks from Springfield to Main Street, adding energy and economic vitality, social connection, and excitement to downtown to support local businesses and really connect one another together after a long and hard year of the pandemic. And up in the Northeast Kingdom, the town of Barton developed a natural amphitheater for community events, educational workshops, performing arts, music concerts, and children's events. This amphitheater was at the site of the community giving garden right along Main Street. And it really brings the community together safely, creates awareness of the community garden's commitment to helping address local food insecurities, and strengthening their relationship to the river and Main Street, the library, and the elementary school. For almost 120 years, folks unable to climb stairs have not been able to use Windsor's library bathroom or children's space. Now that has changed, with the community rallying around the Windsor Public Library, raising local funds, launching their Better Places campaign to bring and add a lift, redo the stairs, and make their bathroom accessible for all. And local donors really showed up. Windsor successfully led a Better Places campaign and raised over $13,000 from 59 donors to meet their goal, with donors contributing from $16 to $3,500. And they raised this money in less than 2 weeks to make this library open and accessible for everyone. And in Stowe, the Lamoille Art and Justice Project is a collaboration between artists, activists, school officials, town folks, and nonprofits, whose goal is to build an understanding of racial justice issues, elevate the voices of the BIPOC Vermonters, or the folks of the global minority, and foster community connections through public art. The Community Mural Project is located on a highly visible and used Stowe recreation path and was led by Vermont-based muralists at Juniper Creative Arts, with hands-on painting led by local community members and students of the local school. And the art installation is beautiful, and it was led by the community and created by the community for the community. The Vergennes Park Street Community Project is a local nonprofit working to expand public access to green spaces in Vergennes. This group led a successful campaign and raised over $22,000 to receive a $40,000 grant to transform the west-facing lawn of the St. Paul's Church property into an attractive, usable space that will serve the community. And further down, and the Vergennes project will begin in the spring of 2023 and will expand green spaces in the downtown and offer a place for all members of the community to gather and enjoy one another. Further down south in Arlington, a local group of residents are working to create a pickleball court in the heart of the village to provide a place for village residents to exercise, build community connection, and have some competitive fun. The local community showed up here as well, with over 100 donors contributing $20,000 to help them receive a $40,000 grant from us to build the pickleball courts later this summer. And then up in Rutland, they transformed Center Street into a safe place to gather, shop, and dine in downtown Rutland and have fun with colorful crosswalks, festive parklets, and lawn games. And in St. Johnsbury, Jillian Sawaki, the director of Discovering St. Johnsbury, has a love for her community that has been the driving force behind many initiatives in St. J. In May of 2022, Jillian and the community launched a successful Better Places campaign for a free outdoor music event series, one of the first Better Places projects to launch and lead a successful campaign. They raised over $4,000 to host the summer event series to fill the streets of downtown St. J with art, community, and fun last summer, adding energy, excitement, and vitality to downtown. And one story that really I want to share that Jillian shared with me and really melted my heart. A community member who lives with her family right in the heart of downtown where their Final Fridays event takes place. Jillian asked her if she was planning to come, and she shared that she couldn't because she always felt bad that her son would ask to participate in things that she couldn't pay for. So Jillian started to list off all the free things that were supported through the Better Places project, like free gelato, face painting, popcorn, giveaways, cookies, live portrait drawings. that she could take part of in without any cost to her or her son. And her face just lit up. And that Friday, when Jillian was out orchestrating the event, Jillian noticed that woman and her entire family were on the streets until the very end of the night, likely past her son's bedtime, enjoying every drop of what this event had to offer. And we need to do more of this. We need to create reasons for people of different backgrounds to come together and enjoy one another's company and share space and joy together. To wrap up, these small and healthy investments in public spaces and communities matter because place matters, because people matter. And place determines people's health, wealth, and happiness more than anything else. These placemaking efforts bring residents together from diverse backgrounds and ages, building community connections and social capital. And building that social capital means not just bringing people together, but creating opportunities for them to do activities together, to do something great together, to develop trusting relationships and shared experiences. It's an investment in these relationships, the people, and the places we all call home. Quickly, I just want to dive into the program and see how you can use Better Places to advance projects in your community. The program launched about a year ago. We supported 21 incredible projects, raising over nearly $250,000 in crowdfunding through community donations and receiving nearly $400,000 in matching grant funds, leveraging over $500,000 in private investment. The average Better Places project, because it's really about community engagement, has 72 donors, ranging in small donations from $1 from a child to larger contributions of $5,000 from local businesses and organizations. Over 1,500 Vermonters have supported Better Places projects since last May. And the program will support any kind of project that creates, revitalizes, or activates a public space that brings Vermonters together to build welcoming and thriving places. The program will award a 2-to-1 matching grant ranging from $5,000 to $40,000 and uses a crowd granting model, weaving in crowdfunding with state grant making. It flips the grant making process around with a non-competitive grant program with no formal review committee, and rather allows the community to invest in local ideas they find valuable and give that extra support and love from the Better Places program to make it happen. And inclusion and equity are a core value of the program. It's the foundation of making great public spaces and community-led placemaking. The Better Places partners believe that all Vermonters deserve access to vibrant and welcoming public spaces in their lives and communities. And placemaking can be that vehicle to neighbor conversations and can spur bigger social, environmental, and economic improvements. And above all, we hope the program increases access to inspiring public spaces for all people in Vermont, regardless of age, background, race, gender, sexual orientation, class, religion, or geography. These grants can create, revitalize public spaces. These can be pocket parks, Main Street activations, public art, village green improvements, and really any public space improvement that bring Vermonters together in public spaces, outdoors or even indoors, like libraries and town halls, or even community gardens or farmers markets and ice rinks in the winter. It's really about bringing Vermonters together in the heart of our communities to connect and enjoy each other. Anybody can apply, a municipality, a local community group, or a nonprofit entity, all can apply. We only award one grant per community per year. We encourage folks to reach out if they have a project idea. Projects do need to be located in the hearts of their communities. They need to be located in a designated downtown, village center, new town center, or neighborhood development area. There's 260 of these designated communities across the state. And, the program supports community-driven placemaking projects through a 2-to-1 matching grant. These grants support both permanent capital improvements to make a public space or temporary improvements that can add programming, events to a downtown Main Street like we saw in St. Jay. And we accept projects on a rolling basis. There is no application deadline. So if you have any interest, please reach out to me and we can discuss a path forward. Quickly, I just want to share what crowdfunding is, because crowdfunding in state government and grant making is a completely new concept idea. And The crowdfunding is really a game changer, how the community gets engaged in the grant making and the local decision making process, and really is about community engagement and really tapping into local leaders and the folks who are going to benefit and access and use these spaces. So our crowdfunding platform is actually managed by a company called Patronicity, who specializes in community-based projects that empower communities to transform and invest in themselves. And we use a pool of grant funds from the state to match donor contributions, allowing that funding to go further, multiplying its impact and gaining those vested donors in the process. And as you can see here, if a community raises $15,000, the state will provide a $30,000 grant for a $45,000 project. The Better Places team provides a lot of handholding and technical assistance. Plus, throughout the process, we provide one-on-one project coaching, marketing and crowdfunding assistance, project development support, tools and resources, and assistance to ensure a successful project and campaign. As part of the rollout of the Better Places program last year, we created some resources and guides to inspire local communities to create vibrant public spaces. One of the resources I really want to highlight is our placemaking toolkit, which shares how ways communities can lead local placemaking efforts, shares resources and local inspiration, and provides tangible steps to co-develop, co-design, and co-implement inclusive public spaces in Vermont communities. In closing, the design of our communities, our streets, and public spaces matter. These are people-focused, hyper-local places where we connect with one another, feel welcomed and included, and celebrate culture and community together, inviting all ages, genders, and backgrounds and walks of life to participate. And they demand our constant support, love, and investment to remain healthy, vibrant, and welcoming places for all. Let's make places together we all love. In conclusion, let's get our, like I just said, let's work together and make our communities better places that are more lovable and socially connected, more vibrant and welcoming places for all people and backgrounds and abilities. And I leave you with a heartfelt thanks for your attention today. And one final thought on Valentine's Day. Let's lead with our hearts and create places we all love. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard and Charles. We are going to move into the Q&A now, and we'll start with some of the questions that we have first in the Q&A. We have a comment from an anonymous attendee that says, I don't know the numbers, but I think some cities have more wealthy base to afford these projects than other cities. I see inequity in fruition of these project developments due to this matching funds approach. Please comment on my perception.
Rich, you want to take it?
I apologize. I was trying to stop share screen and I didn't get the question. Would you repeat that, Carmen?
Sure. So the comment / question is, I don't know the numbers, but I think some cities have a more wealthy base to afford these projects than other cities. I see this inequity in fruition of these project developments due to this matching funds approach. Please comment on my perception.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your insight and perceptions. I don't disagree wholeheartedly, but I've been blown away and surprised by the community participation in these communities. Currently, we are running a campaign, or not we, the fine folks over in Vershire are running a campaign for creating a pavilion at their town center. Vershire is a town of 763 people. And they're asking their community, the greater Vershire community, to support this pavilion build out, where they've slowly over the years created a gathering place with a pizza oven right by the town offices, and they do have community events and celebrations, but they really had no place that was accessible, close to the sheltered from the weather. And they reached out to use Better Places as a way to create support the creation of this pavilion. They are blowing it out of the park. They are our largest donor fundraising campaign to date. with 133 donors and counting, raising nearly, I think, $19,000 and counting to get to their $20,000 goal. It's been incredible to see. Our smallest communities actually are the ones who are having the largest participation in meeting these campaign goals. With the support the state and our crowdfunding partners provide and the Vermont Community Foundation, I don't see that being an obstacle in our smallest, less resourced communities. We do mobilize our partners and help with a lot of outreach and awareness to ensure that there's broad visibility to support these campaigns from all members of the community, but beyond their reach. A lot of our communities have second homeowners, reaching out to them who may have a little bit, means and resources to support these. And so like you saw in Brattleboro, where there was numerous donors supporting from other states. So I don't see that as a barrier or hurdle in participation. And if it is, I would love to talk more about it offline.
Another thing to keep in mind there is, as it relates to some of these projects, it is true that communities lack funding or equitable access to funding. But what is also mentioned is idea creation. If you have ideas, a lot of these projects are very small scale and can be done with very limited resources. So please don't walk away thinking that you need to have access to the capital to do some of the things that we're mentioning here to promote health equity in the built environment, because there are low cost ways to get things done, and they're happening all over the state as well as all over the country. Carmen.
Thank you, Richard and Charles. We'll move into a question for Charles that was typed in the chat. This was in reference to your case study. Curious about the multiple languages used in the case study survey. Can you give a list of the languages you chose?
Yeah, so in that particular case, I typed this in the chat too. That was a hypothetical situation. It wasn't a real case study. What I was trying to demonstrate there is that if you apply the lessons learned in the presentation in regards to centering health equity in the built environment, I walk you through what outcomes you might expect to see. And in this particular case, if we were to approach a town with similar conditions or village as the one in the case study, what we would do ultimately is start with looking at the top 10 languages in Vermont other than English. And a quick Google search will show you that that includes French, Spanish, German, Chinese, Russian, Italian, and Polish. So if that case study was a real one, all of the things in which we translated in engaging with the community would be considerate of those top 10 languages, but it is on a case-by-case basis. And so it really matters which community you engage in, which languages are most dominant, and thus which ones you translate to ensure community has understanding.
Okay. From Larry Gilbert, we have a question. East Montpelier does not have a designated downtown. Does that mean we can't be eligible?
No, East Montpelier is a designated village center through the state designation program, so East Montpelier would be eligible.
Okay. Joanne O'Connor asks, can the funds be used to improve a town-owned building and turn it into a community center along with other grants?
Absolutely. Town-owned spaces, public spaces, indoors or out, would be eligible.
Okay. Daniel Perkins asks, I am the founder of a for-profit business called Community Wealth Development that develops community through building different forms of capital at the local level through equitable means. Is there an opportunity for an LLC to participate in these funding programs?
For Better Places, I think there could be an opportunity. There has been private buildings that have tapped into it and went into some agreement to allow their buildings to be accessible and open to the public. We'd have to talk through the nuances of that, but absolutely there may be a path forward.
An anonymous attendee asks, are you including undocumented workers in your target populations? Is there a position on undocumented folks living and working in Vermont and how they fit into your focus?
Yes, they are included in our focus. In fact, all people that may have been historically as well as in common day terms marginalized, we are considered. we are considering. If you have any connections to that particular group, please reach out to us, and we'll be sure to involve them in everything that we have moving forward. So short answer is yes.
Okay. We have a couple minutes left in this Q&A. Matthew LaFleur asks, how does this accessibility projects enable more involvement with communities that are rural, that have cities that have more wealth than others? How can he spread that growth and wealth together? And how can we meet rural communities' federal guideline objectives?
Not sure what he's asking here, but we do want to state that we've prioritized the importance of access and health equity in the built environment in rural locations throughout Vermont. So they are a priority. There's no prerequisite for a community to have wealth. In fact, we're prioritizing those in which do not have wealth by ensuring that they gain access to these services.
Jeanette Langston asks, this seems focused on publicly owned outdoor spaces. Weather in Vermont is always questionable. We need spaces year-round that aren't weather dependent for use. Does this include indoor spaces as well? Does the project always have to be public spaces? Can it happen in non-government owned spaces, nonprofit, etc.?
Or specifically for the Better Places grants, they can be indoors or out. I mean, Vermont has long, 6 months of winter, so we want to make sure we can still stay connected in the winter time. And indoors spaces are eligible, like town halls, community centers. They do need to be open and accessible to all, so that does have a public kind of realm to it. But nonprofit spaces have been, serving the public in that way for years, like senior centers, community centers of other sorts. So I would encourage you to reach out, and we can talk through a project in your community. And then for the pilot, I don't know if you want to share a little bit, Charles, but nonprofits entities are eligible to reach out and express interest in the technical assistance offered as well.
That's right. We don't discriminate.
Okay. There are several other questions that are in the Q&A, and we will get to those. If we can't answer them briefly in the time that we have here today, we can also follow up with you personally. And in the interest of time, we're going to shift out into our break period. So we have a short stretch break, bio break for you all, and we will circle back and meet back together at 11:25.
My life in the sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Folks get down in the sunshine. Sunshine. Yeah. Folks get brown in the sunshine. Just bees and things and flowers. Just bees and things and flowers. Just bees and things and flowers. sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Everybody loves the sunshine. Sunshine. Folks get down in the sunshine. Sunshine. Folks get brown in the sunshine. Feel what I feel when I feel what I feel when I'm feeling in the sunshine. Feel what I feel when I feel what I feel when I'm feeling in the sunshine.
All right, everybody. We are back. And thank you all for staying tuned in. We are going to shift into the time together where we have a couple of different panelists who are going to present on other grant opportunities across the state of Vermont that focus on equity. So.
Yeah, so I am going to loosely introduce the panel here. I'll just do a quick mention of the folks who will be here, and then we'll pass it off quickly in between each person. But we have Ted Brady, who is going to present from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to talk about their support to municipalities around equity for resources, training, support, and all of that. Charles is going to talk again about the TA, specifically about the TA pilot, where technical assistance is being offered to towns to develop projects. We have Salvador Morales here, who will be talking about a project that the regional planning commissions are working on around integrating health equity into planning and implementation projects around the state. Laurel Ruggles is going to talk about the Vermont Public Institute's work providing funding to each of the counties around the state to develop kind of like health equity zones and funding health equity projects in each of our communities as a resource for partnering with folks around the state. And who am I forgetting? I think that's everybody. Ted, I think, is up first.
I am. Thanks so much, Suzanne. And I think somebody is driving some slides. Excellent. So I am Ted Brady. I'm the executive director of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And for those that don't know what the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is, we're a membership organization that all 247 cities and towns in Vermont are members of. That's 247. Thanks, Essex City. As of last year, we're growing here in Vermont. And we also represent another 144 units of government. So those of you joining us today from regional planning commissions, looking at you, Salvador. For those of you joining us from solid waste management districts, fire districts, all sorts of municipalities, you're all part of us. We're a member-owned organization. And we do three primary things. We advocate for municipalities in the State House. We provide technical assistance. We do that by hiring 4 attorneys, a finance specialist, a research analyst to answer more than 4,000 questions annually. And we provide shared services, so things like insurance and a few other odds and ends that communities have come together to offer themselves instead of having to go out to the commercial market. Well, why is that history important? That's important because why am I here talking about equity? Because our towns, our cities, our villages, our members have demanded in the past couple of years that we provide them some help in doing equity work. Now, you just spent some time talking about physical places. and things that are ways that equity manifest themselves. As Richard, so aptly put it, showing where your heart is. Well, before you can get to the idea of building an equitable physical environment, you have to have an equitable mental environment. And you have to actually be welcoming and opening to that idea. And so what we've found over the last couple of years that towns are struggling to do this equity work. They have people coming to them and saying their police departments, about 50 municipalities in Vermont have police departments. Their police departments are not manifesting their idea of equity in how they're policing in Vermont. We had people coming to us and asking us, hey, we've got community members that want to fly the Black Lives Matter flag. How do we deal with that? What do we do? And then we have people coming to us and asking for, help in this thing called the Declaration of Inclusion. At this point, I think we're near 70 towns across Vermont have adopted this thing called the Declaration of Inclusion. People were asking, what does this mean? Can we do this? Should we do this? And so here at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, we built some tools to help communities address that. We built an equity committee. We adopted a statement on equity and racial justice. And we put in a social and equity justice plan. We put that in place. And so here I wanted to share a couple of tools that you as a municipal official have access to, and potentially you as just a community member has access to also. So just to reorient you, we serve the select boards, the clerks, the town managers, the planning commission members, the DRB members, the equity committee members. That's who we serve at the VLCT. So don't think I'm being exclusionary. That's just what we do. So I have two tools I want to share with you. First, I want to be clear that we here at the League, as you can see in front of you on the slide, refer to justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So it's more than just equity, and it's not just health equity. Health equity is one piece of the equity pie in our mind. If you take me to the next slide, the first tool we launched was an equity toolkit, a municipal equity toolkit, available on the VLCT website at vlct.org/DEI. This is meant to be a one-stop resource that helps municipalities, whether they're new to this work or already engaged in this work, connect to the best practices. It offers a resource library and model templates to facilitate doing equity work. The toolkit is specifically geared towards towns and cities and villages, but it's meant to be used by select boards, town managers, administrators, or members of communities' equity committees. Speaking of equity committees, one of the most used resources on this toolkit is a list of about a dozen or so equity committees here in Vermont, and a model committee charter and a model committee charge, as well as some other resources that a committee could use to form. That's oftentimes the first step a community takes to trying to get this mental mindset around equity. There are 12 different parts to this toolkit. I don't need to read them to you. They're on this slide. You should check it out at vlct.org/equity. If you take me to the next slide, a second tool that we've offered. So communities asked for a lot of different things. We tried to provide an overview of all that in that toolkit, but they wanted a learning and a networking experience. We were asked for not just training, but also data and that networking. That seemed to be one of the most important things, to get communities connecting to one another to find out what they're doing. We immediately partnered with the National League of Cities and Towns to offer a 3-part diversity equity training program to every community in Vermont. More than 100 officials participated in that training. And then last summer, we partnered with Vermont-based cultural transformation consultancy, Abundant Sun, to offer Vermont communities this thing that you see before you, the VLCT Welcoming and Engaging Communities cohort. This is a networking learning opportunity geared towards municipal officials. Again, trying to get them into the mindset of this equity work so that they can deliver on the types of projects we're talking about today and the opportunities we're talking about today. This is a networking and learning opportunity that we at VLCT pay for. So it's free to your community because they're a member of VLCT. And again, it's geared towards select board members and clerks and managers. So not just any community member can participate in this cohort. But the goal of this is to participate in a 6-month learning process featuring 8 2-hour training sessions, participation in a a survey called the Inclusion and Belonging Index, and an opportunity to learn what's happening in other communities. The communities get to experience Abundant Sun's Ethical Performance Improvement Campaign, which is a focused effort to evaluate and change the culture of an organization to ensure it's welcoming and inclusive. We currently have 8 communities participating, and we anticipate a call for a round 2 of this session, of this series, of this cohort, around sometime this summer, where we'll be calling for applications. So if you're interested or you want your community to be interested, keep an eye towards vlct.org so that you can sign up for our newsletter and learn when that opportunity comes about. The VLCT Welcome and Engaging Communities cohort really aims to help a community look inward and ensure that local officials, employees, and volunteers are supporting the creation of a culture of inclusion and belonging. Again, which hopefully translates to taking advantage of the resources we're talking today. The final thing I wanted to touch on, which I don't have a slide for, is that simultaneously, we're partnering with the Vermont Office of Racial Equity. Some of you may know Susanna Davis and the staff over there at the office, to help communities transform their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion into action. This is the external thing, right? Once you've looked internally and made sure that your head's in the right place, you can look outwardly and try to help others get there. Last year, they launched this thing called Ideal Vermont. It's a program that brings together communities committed to work and connecting them to state agencies, state grants, and other resources to execute this work. So imagine you have a policing issue. Well, this would connect you directly to the Commissioner of Public Safety to help you maybe address that issue. Let's say you're talking about citing some sort of natural resource issue, and you want to figure out the equity resources there. They'd connect you to ANR and the Office of Equity there and try to connect you and help you through that process. Currently, there's 14 communities in the program. IDEAL, by the way, stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Action, and Leadership. To learn more about the program, Google Vermont Office of Racial Equity, IDEAL, IDEAL, and you'll find it pretty quickly. Again, this is a different program than the VLCT Welcoming and Engaging Communities cohort, which looks inward. IDEAL looks outward and tries to take your ideas into action. So it's a really great program. And they don't just take anybody. Your community needs to apply. There's an interview process, and then you get that IDEAL stamp and you're part of this cohort. So that's it from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. I really appreciate participating here, and good luck on your equity journey. I think my job is to turn it back over to Charles. Is that right?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ted. That was great. Once again, I want to introduce you all to the reason why we're here, which is the Health Equity and Community Design Technical Assistance Pilot Project. The overall support goal of this project is to provide extra capacity and resources to communities to develop healthy community design and placemaking plans, ideas, and projects that center on equity. We've seen a lot of discussion in the chat, in the Q&A regarding potential projects, ideas, et cetera. At the end of my presentation here, you'll see present contact information. If you have any ideas, any communities that you think should be part of this, please wait for that contact information. In terms of eligibility, we're looking for communities that are located in Vermont. This is a Vermont-based project. This is not for New Hampshire. This is not for New York. This is for Vermont. And when it comes to those communities, we have identified a special focus on tribal groups and communities and populations that have been historically marginalized and or disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. We've seen some conversations about the role of systemic racism, et cetera. In the context of what it means to be historically marginalized, we do take into account systemic racism and how it has impacted the health outcomes of those groups. We are also looking for health equity ambassadors. So if you are someone that are 18 years or older, you reside in Vermont and have a close and real understanding of the tribal groups and the communities being served here, please reach out to us. We would like that you have interest and expertise in health, wellness, community design, and placemaking. But in the spirit of Valentine's Day, if you have a big heart and you want to work with these communities to advance health equity, please apply to become a health equity ambassador. Following that, our areas of focus are health equity, as was covered in my opening presentation, healthy community design, which was also covered in placemaking, which was covered by both Richard and I. In terms of timing, right now we have applications for communities that are rolling through the end of April of this year. Again, I repeat, applications for community are rolling through April 2023. So be sure, if you're interested, to go ahead and start that process. Our technical assistance based on those applications will be offered through October of 2023. Again, these are 2 key dates for you. And again, if you're interested in becoming a health equity ambassador, our applications for that are rolling through May of 2023 with engagement in alignment with the community TA being offered through October of 2023. And then finally here, in terms of reach and support, we're providing technical assistance up to 35 different Vermont community towns and villages. We are not excluding people from applying here, but we're providing technical assistance up to 35. So be sure to apply right away so you can be considered as part of that 35. You will not, however, receive any direct funding. Instead, what you will be receiving is technical assistance that is up to 80 hours in support from the nation's and international communities' best experts on community design, landscaping, landscape architects, housing and economic development, marketing, communication, and language translators. We also have services around disability, access, and inclusion as well. So again, no direct funding, but up to 80 hours in support from the nation's, or dare I say, the world's best in these subjects. And then health equity ambassadors, we are selecting up to 35. The ideal scenario is we would have a health equity ambassador for every community of which we provide technical assistance for. But we understand we may not have a one-to-one match there, so that doesn't prevent people from serving multiple communities if you have the ability to do so. We're providing a rate up to $25 per hour, up to 60 hours per ambassador. And there will be professional development and support, meaning that we will be training each and every one of our health equity ambassadors. If you're wondering how you can now access this, get in contact with us, please contact us at contact@equitableCities.com. You can also, to go learn more about this, at the Healthiest Community Vermont website, and we're going to paste that link in the chat. Thank you for your time. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague.
Looks like Sal, you are up.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry. So yeah, how's it going, everybody? My name is Salvador Morales. I'm a planner with the Lamoille County Planning Commission, and I'm here to speak to you about our health equity grant work that we've been doing with all the other regional planning commissions. So the RPCs and VDH have been developing this toolkit since very early on in 2022, and it was recently finalized just this past January. The grant is broken up into 2 phases. The first phase being that toolkit development, which we reached out to various state partners, local partners, and also nonprofit organizations to gain their feedback to better understand how we can create a document that has meaningful effect. The second phase, which we are currently in, is the implementation phase. It is the implementation phase, excuse me. The real purpose of this toolkit that we've been working on, it's meant to act as a guide for municipal officials when approaching plan updates and implementation projects. The toolkit covers various aspects of municipality planning with examples and resources for anyone who's really curious to access it. We did create a separate resource guide and matrix that has town plan and bylaw update sample language, and that is available as a separate document so that you can find the information that's most relevant for your community. Going on to eligibility, so there's quite a few, but I'll list them out because they're very important. We are looking to serve underserved populations, and that may be people of color, indigenous people, refugees, and English language learners, the LGBTQ plus community, people experiencing homelessness, Vermonters who are justice involved, people living with disabilities, people living in rural communities. You'll see in the rural communities, it says communities with less than 5,000 residents. And the reason why that stipulation is on there is because we are using the census definition. And that's just something of note. For example, I know here in Morristown and Lamoille, I think they're right above that. So they would not qualify as a rural community at this time. When it comes, oh, and you could go to the next slide, I'm sorry. Awesome. When RPCs are determining implementation project eligibility, please note we do ask that you try to address more than just the rural community category. We understand in general that rural communities do lack many, many resources, and we don't want to forget those issues, but we do want to see a greater focus on the other underserved populations that define themselves as something other than just a person living in a rural community. And here on this slide where you see area of focus, you'll see that this grant is meant to bring effect within town plans and regional plans, municipal plan bylaw updates, transportation plans, hazard mitigation plans. The RPCs can provide project management for qualified projects within the phase 2 portion of the grant. And then also what's really great is that you can focus on recreational spaces, have that be green spaces or looking to reinvent a unused area in your municipality. So please reach out to your local organizations that are actively engaged in the underserved communities. They know the best way to respectfully begin a discussion between municipality and community. And then coming over to timing, you'll see that, like I mentioned, we are currently in an implementation phase, and that will end in May of 2024. It is really important to note, though, that our technical assistance funds can be depleted prior to that. So please, if you have an idea that may be groundbreaking or anything like that for your community, please go to your region's RPC and bring it up to them, because it is very important to get your foot in the door early so we can ensure that we can have proper funding in time to be able to assist you. And then you can hop to the next slide, please. So here on Reach and Support, like I mentioned, for project questions and help, please go to your region's RPC, not Lamoille County, unless your town isn't within Lamoille County. The level of support will vary depending on the project, have that be due to funding, but also scope. Larger scope projects may require a little bit more RPC attention versus smaller projects. We may be able to figure out how to pass that off to the town in a reasonable way. And then finally, how do you access all this information and the toolkit? It is on Lamoille County's website, lcpcvt.org. It is on our homepage, and that's where you'll see our toolkit and the separate resource guide. If you do have, I guess, grant-specific questions that aren't related to projects, please reach out to me, Salvador Morales, at salvador@lcpcvt.org, or Megan Rodier, who is our regional planner at our office, at megan@lcpcvt.org. And I believe that is it for me. I will pass it off to, I believe, Laurel.
Thank you, Salvador. Hi, I'm Laurel Ruggles. I'm representing the Vermont Public Health Institute, and the program I'm going to talk to you about today is the Vermont Community Health Equity Partnership, or we call it VCHEP for short. The money for the VCHEP comes from this CDC grant that the Department of Health got, that I think many of the projects here today were funded by that grant. And it was really, we received the grant to reduce the health disparities that were revealed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And as you've heard this morning from Charles and others, there were some people who were more adversely impacted by the pandemic than others. So originally, this CDC grant was expected to end in May of 2023, but the state did receive a no-cost extension. So that means no more money, but more time to spend the money that we originally had. And we estimate that at least some of our work of VCHIP will continue until probably about November of 2023. So there are really three parts to VCHIP. There's the Action Learning Collaborative. We have embedded part-time staff called integrators in each community and across the state, and then also funding for local projects. So today I'm only going to speak to you about the community funding part of VCHIP. But first I wanted to give you a little context. This work is really around creating a framework for community-led work. So our overall goal is about building capacity at the local level to do health equity work and to really create that culture of equity. And what I mean by that is that when you're working together with others in the community, that you're looking at everything with that equity lens. Because we really believe that health equity work is best done at the local level, that solutions to complex issues like health equity come from people who live in a place together and from people who are truly invested in finding the best solutions and outcomes. So some of you, if you're not aware of how public health in Vermont is delivered, the state is divided into 12 districts with a Department of Health district located in each district. For VCHIP, all 12 of the districts are participating at some level. 11 of the 12 have a 20-hour-a-week staff that we call the integrators to facilitate the health equity work at the local level. And then each of those 11 districts identified an existing local team. It could have been a coalition, an accountable health community, or some other active committee. Or in a few cases, they created a new team to work and drive the health equity work in their community. Each district also created, with their teams, they came together and they developed what we call a data-driven problem statement. So they looked at the data, they did look at the numbers, but they also reached out and listened to people in the communities to develop their data-driven problem statement. And in the end, the data-driven problem statements were the result of many, many hours of lively conversations and debate, but eventually they came to consensus on what the teams wanted to focus their work on for the term of VCHIP. So next slide, please. So each of the 12 districts, so all 12, had $150,000 each to grant out to their communities. And they used their data-driven problem statement as a theme for their funding. So we had to give them some general guidelines for funding because this is CDC money, it's federal money. So there are some rules that we have to follow. But each district developed their own application process, their own ways to get the word out about the funding and their own funding criteria, their own process for reviewing the application and for deciding who reviewed the application and who got to decide on what was funded. And for many, this was their first time acting in that funder role. So it could be messy and frustrating, but they got it done. And by the end, there'll be almost $2 million distributed at the local level across the state, probably funding more than 60 local projects and programs. The process for funding at the local level started last summer, and some districts jumped right out of the gate and got their applications out in the early fall. Some followed shortly after, late fall. Most of them got their applications out by the end of 2022. So many of the projects funded are well on their way. And then originally, all of the projects funded had to have the projects done and the money spent by this May, but because of the no cost extension, they'll all have more time if they need it. They'll have until the fall of 2023. Some may need it and some won't. So Brattleboro is the only district whose application period is still open. It closes tomorrow. And at the end of my slides, you'll see a link to their how to access their application. So if you're in the Windham County region and you have a project idea that's ready to go, you can click on the link and apply today or tomorrow. You've got a couple of days. So next slide. So the next few slides are just a list of all of the projects that have been funded. I'm just going to linger on this one for a minute. So we'll go to the next one. And then the next one. I think you're going to all get copies of these slides. And the reason I wanted to supply them all is because I really hope that if you recognize an organization or a project on this list that is in your region, that you reach out to them and see if there are any opportunities that you have to collaborate with them currently or any future work. So these are the groups and organizations in your communities that are already focusing on health equity. So reach out to them and see if you can combine forces to have more impact. And then my last slide, there's my information. And then, as I mentioned, the Brattleboro District, the Windham County area, their application to apply for this funding is open until tomorrow. So you can follow that link and check out their application and see if it's something you can apply for. And I'm going to hand it back to Suzanne.
Yes, thanks, Laurel. And I also wanted to mention just one more funding piece of the puzzle that we're aware of. The health department. So a lot of this is I think Laurel mentioned, funding that's coming from the health department. We got a lot of money for COVID and equity type work, health equity work that we've been distributing in many different ways. So the TA pilot is one, the Regional Planning Commission work is one, the stuff Laurel talked about. And then many of you may have seen either in the news or just through emails that the Vermont Community Foundation has also been helping to manage a bunch of grants for the health department that have gone out already, but around the state. And I think, yes, there is a link in the chat where you can also look to see who's been funded, what agencies have been funded, and maybe also recognize some of those in your communities. Like Laurel said, part of the purpose of doing this today is because we are hearing a lot about, we have been hearing for months questions about where's the funding going, what's the funding, who's doing what, how can I reach out to other people? So we're really trying to provide this overview of sort of what all the opportunities are and hoping that people will also take some initiative and try to find those partners or those organizations and reach out and help to better coordinate things on the local level if you can. There are offices of local health throughout the state that should be aware of most of this funding also and could be really good resources for folks as well. So it is time for a Q&A, and actually Shalini has joined us from the Office of Racial Equity. Is that right? The Vermont Office of Racial Equity? I feel like I'm forgetting a word there.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here earlier and can't thank Ted enough for stepping up and sharing information about IDEAL, but I just wanted you to know I'm here now if you have any questions or if I can help in any way.
Thank you so much. So let me just see, go back to the chat. One of the questions that so it is time for questions and answer. If anybody has questions, please feel free to submit them. One of the questions that I did see come up was, is there a visual of all these different opportunities that are available out there? And I'll just say that we started that and we tried it, and it's really not quite that simple or clear. It kind of leads people to everybody who looked at it had a lot more questions than it seemed to provide answers and guidance, but we can continue to try and work on that. Just a simple presentation of what all these opportunities are, how to access them, who's doing what. So we'll work on that. There's a group of us that meet about quarterly to talk about all this work, and so I'll bring that back to to that group and see what we can create, and then get that posted on a few websites and emailed out to everybody. So let's see. I am curious. I'm going to just start with Charles. Can you give us an idea of the types of applications that are coming in? Like what kind of TA people are asking for or requesting, and where around the state that's happening?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is provide a list of that Suzanne post webinar, for the sake of time. But we, just in more general terms, we've heard from a number of communities. Some have been looking at access for persons with disabilities, public spaces. We've had a pretty representative request from throughout the state, in particular the, I don't want to say geographically which part of the state, but we've had a representative response, and that's something that we could share post-webinar. We don't have all the information available before us right now to be that exact. And so to risk not being called on that later, I would just like to say we can provide that later.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And Sal, I have a similar question for you. I think that the RPCs are hearing requests for projects, and I don't know if you can share or give some ideas of the types of things that are coming up.
Yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and give some Lamoille County examples just to respect the other regions. So for example, the town of Elmore over here has been brought up the idea of creating a welcome packet for incoming residents. And they felt that potentially health equity could be something of interest to weave into it. And so that's pretty interesting that we're going to be working with. And also the town of Woolkit, their planning commission has shown interest. I won't say that there's no project idea yet, but there has been interest from towns so far without us having to necessarily reach out.
Thanks, and that's actually maybe my question for anybody here, like with Ted or Shalini, in terms of reception of these programs. Are you feeling like you're needing to knock on doors a lot, or are people coming to you? How hard has it been to engage municipalities in these efforts?
Ed, do you want to respond first, or?
I don't, go ahead. Thanks for the offer though.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think we are not finding it difficult. It seems there are a lot of communities that are just chomping at the bit, want to get started on the equity work. But I think where there's sometimes a disconnect is in our program, we are very much looking to admit people who are ready to go and hit the ground running. And so we are not admitting groups that haven't demonstrated a commitment to diversity already. So either having a position in their community dedicated to DEI work, or creating a committee that works on it, adopting the Declaration of Inclusion, something tangible that shows the commitment. Also, we look for support from the leadership in the community. If they're not ready to back up participation in Ideal Vermont, then we know any efforts that are proposed may not get enough support. So we are looking for communities that are ready. If they're not ready, we're happy to help them get there. But so far, interest has been strong, and we've got a phenomenal first cohort. So we're excited to be able to start sharing updates on what they're doing with the information. I think everyone's going to be really impressed.
Nothing to add there. Well said.
Suzanne, you did buy me time to take a look at where we received applications from, and now in response to your question, so far through Q2 of this process, we received a total of 15 applications from throughout the state, and of those 15 applications, though all are being considered, we had 12 that were complete. That represents about 8 counties and 12 towns and villages throughout the state of Vermont. All of those communities have received acknowledgement of the receipt of their applications. And we sent 2 communities invitations to discuss things even further. So far, we've heard from town of Glover, town of Shaftesbury, Hartford, and the town of Bristol, to name a few there. What we really need from everyone that is here is to hear from those interested in being health equity ambassadors. We could really use more health equity ambassadors. It has been going pretty well, okay, but we need more coverage. We would like to see one health ambassador per each of the 35 communities, ideally. And so that's where we need the most support. Thanks.
Thanks, Charles. And Ted, did you want to speak at all just to like how your efforts have been received? It sounds like you have created your resources in response to a demand or interest, but just wondering then, has that interest kept up and how's that been for you?
Yeah, well, as we're watching, the Declaration of Inclusion is an interesting piece of all of this. And just to reorient people, there's a group of Vermonters that are out there promoting this effort to get communities to adopt statements of inclusion. And they have a specific one called the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion. And more than 70 communities have adopted this at this point. And with the goal of getting to 100 by Inclusion Week, which is in May. It's amazing to see how quickly that's taken on. It's been about 2 years, and it's really caught fire because I think people are eager to show their communities are welcome and inclusive places. Now, when you drill down deeper, right, you get a select board of 5, you get a community of 2,000. It's not one opinion, and I think the biggest issue here is trying to educate people about why this work's important. And I don't want to pretend like everybody understands why it's important. And I'm sure that goes beyond equity in your mind to equity in your place, right? The easiest explanation to why this work's important is, why do you put a curb cut in a sidewalk? Yeah, it's because people who need a curb cut, who are disabled or who have special needs to be able to, you can't get up a curb, it makes that sidewalk better, but it also makes it better for a mom walking a kid, a dad walking a kid, a stroller. It also makes it easier to push the cart back from the grocery store, like go down the long list of things. And that's kind of what we really need to, there's still work to be done to educate people why this type of investment in time and money is important.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate that. Laura, I want to ask you a question about the backbone organizations. My understanding is that the funding that went out to communities was led by a backbone organization in each of the communities. How could, if people want to find out who those folks are, how to get involved, are those still existing? Can you help provide some resources for people who want to find out more in their own communities?
Sure. And if you're not familiar with the term backbone, this work is really under the framework of collective impact, and that's a vocabulary word from collective impact. And so what it really is the organization within a local organization who is receiving the funding and kind of managing the funding at the local level. Probably the best way, Suzanne, is for people to just email me, and I can let them, we can supply them with, if there's somebody within their specific community they're interested in, or I can let them know if they just email me. That might be the easiest way at this point.
Great, thanks. I'll just mention that somebody did ask sort of like the responsibilities of the health equity ambassadors, though that information is available on the website. And I wonder if Aaliyah, maybe you could just put that in the chat to everybody, or Charles, if you want to speak more to that.
Yeah, I responded to the Q&A, but what makes so you'll see on the website that Suzanne is referencing and Aaliyah is going to put here in the chat. We have an overview of health equity ambassadors, what we're looking for. We stated that we'll be providing a rate of $25 per hour for up to 60 hours. And some of the duties of the health equity ambassadors will include helping to manage local processes, navigating community issues and opportunities, facilitating community and stakeholder engagement, and working with state and local agencies and our TA pilot consultants on helping to develop these local ideas, these plans and actions that you're trying to move forth with. Some of the things that make for a good, healthy ambassador, again, in the spirit of Valentine's, is a big heart, number one. Number two, you should be a trusted leader from one of the identified special populations or priority populations that we mentioned. Have a close understanding of these communities as well. You should be able to use a person-centered approach to building trusting relationships among these populations, and have interest or expertise in health, wellness, community design, and placemaking. But again, if you do not, and you have a big heart and want to work with them, we'll take that too. You'll be invited to lead, to co-lead, and participate in community meetings and conversations as they come about. And because we're going through the process of health assessments, you'll be asked to conduct outreach, review these projects, these plans, visuals, guidebooks, etc. And so that's what we're looking for. And of course, you'll be trained and you will be compensated. That's a general overview. For more specificity on health equity ambassadors, please visit that link.
Thanks, Charles. One thing I want to mention, and Richard, if you're there behind the screen, I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about partnerships with VTrans, because the questions come up in turn, because, you know, big part of bikeability and walkability is dealing with streets and roads and sidewalks that towns may have some jurisdiction over, but VTrans often also has quite a bit of jurisdiction over. So I don't know if you could speak a little bit to partnerships with VTrans and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Suzanne. We've partnered quite a bit with VTrans over the years to help build more complete streets and streets for people as well as cars. And we provide funding through a joint partnership with the Department of Health, Agency of Natural Resources, and VTrans and our agency to help communities reimagine their streets to be more places for people to gather, safer, pedestrian walkways, bike lanes, and really add vibrant streetscapes to support the local economy through the Better Connections program. We support 3 communities a year and have supported, 21 communities now. And some of those communities have explored taking over a state-owned section of highway through their town, like Route 100, you think of through the Mad River Valley, taking over sections of that roadway. So there's more design flexibility at the local level to add amenities, street trees, curb extensions, and other kind of amenities to the streetscape that may not be something that VTrans would do on their own. But if you take ownership of it, you can do it. But there's some cost implications of that. And they did a white paper to explore those. And I can share that. I did post it in one of the responses to somebody who asked to kind of explore that. But really, what I encourage is to reach out to us and really develop a vision for your streetscape, what that looks like, the physical changes needed to make it more accessible, safer, more vibrant. And we can provide resources to do that and connect you to the folks within the agency at VTrans to navigate the kind of federal requirements of federal funding to make those changes to be more people friendly.
I was actually, so I just see Aaliyah posted something. Richard, the other thing is maybe you can also post the link to all the funding resources that you have compiled. And I'm mentioning this just because some of the questions that are coming up are questions specific to, would this kind of project be eligible? Would this kind of project be eligible? And in some ways it maybe depends. And I just want folks to know that the projects and funding and TA that we talked about here today is not all of the potential opportunities for funding. Somebody asked about bike racks. If you can't get bike racks through these projects, there might be other sources that could help support that. So just wanting people to know that there are lots of options out there. And Richard just posted, I think, a really great document that his agency has been compiling over time of different funding opportunities that people can access. Okay, so just want to check if there are any more questions. Are persons in recovery from addiction considered to be a member of the underserved population? I'm hesitating because I'm not sure that population was called out specifically in the CDC COVID Health Equity Grant, but certainly it is a population that we would love to see involved, and that we would love to be able to provide some kind of, create communities where substance-free events are prioritized, where there are policies, systems, and environmental changes that help support people who are working on recovery, and to help support social connectedness with their community, and feel safe and included in the projects that happen there. I don't know if other panelists want to speak to that.
I'm not sure if you already talked about it, but I was going to mention Will Eberly from Recovery Vermont has a ton of great information and knowledge about populations that are recovering. And they work specifically around, they're developing a strategic plan specifically around equity, lifting up equity for people in those situations. And so I think if you want to know more about that, he might be an excellent resource. I'll try to put it in the chat too.
Thank you, Shalini. Okay. Yes, we will be following up with contact information and links that were shared today. I think this might be a question for Carmen or Aaliyah. Will an email go out, follow-up email with a link to the recording and some of the resources that were shared today?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any other questions? All right, I think anything more from the panelists? Any last thoughts for today?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
I'd just like to thank the Department of Health for leading this. It's a great opportunity for my communities to make both kind of a mental mindset adjustment to how they're designing their communities, and then actually execute on doing a project. And for those of you that haven't met Richard on this webinar, I need to just reiterate that I think he's one of the smartest people in community and economic development out there. So use that resource. If he's there for you, call him, harass him, talk to him about some ideas. It's really useful. And thanks for all the partners here are doing. I checked out Salvador and the Regional Planning Committee's Commission's toolkit. That's worth a 5-minute read if you haven't done that. It's visually appealing, and it walks you through some really great, inspiring ideas for what communities could look like in the future. Well done.
Thanks, Ted. Yeah, I'll definitely mention that there's just a team of really committed, phenomenal partners involved in all this work, from you all who attended today to those of us on the panel. Really excited and interested in seeing how the landscape of Vermont changes as a result of all of this really amazing work and dedication to these projects. Mm-hmm. One thing that I want to make sure to mention is that there is a follow-up presentation / webinar next week, a week from today, for people who do have some projects that they want to kind of workshop, talk about, see if they become bigger projects. So please do think about registering for that. There is a link going to be coming in the chat, and it's also here on the slide. There we go. And there is an opportunity in that just to talk a little bit about what type of project that you might want to talk about during that time. And I'm checking my notes to see if there's anything else I need to say. I don't think so. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us for almost 2 hours today on this beautiful Valentine's Day in Vermont. And hopefully you'll be in touch.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.